Welcome everyone to the another episode. Today we have a Dr. Chris Gray all the way from Chicago. So he has been a pioneer expert in consumer psychology and buying behavior for 3 decades. In the time, he's been put his extensive expertise to work with helping many of the world most admired brands like a P&G, Coca-Cola, Nestle, the North Face, Adidas, Novartis, and many others. So understand consumer minds to create winning strategies, solve business challenges, innovative effectively, and gain unfair advantage by influencing consumer behavior without feeling gross. So this is his mojo, and this is how he's been helping other big brands to understand the psychology behind the buying, right? And also, we're going to talk about a little bit about his background, how he got into this trade from being a psychologist to right now the work he does. And also, we're going to touch base as a topic power of curiosity, how curiosity can change your life as well. So, without further ado, let's welcome Mr. Dr. Chris Gray. And Dr. Chris Gray, welcome to the show. And how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, and I'm excited to getting to know a bit about yourself, your journey, and story that is could be quite interesting, right? You have like a different background from clinical psychologist to right now you in the business world, and you're helping other brands to understand the more psychology behind the consumer psychology, and it's just like a quite fascinating, and we don't see that as a kind of niche people like to say like as a career path you can go into, and which is like really interesting. So walk us through before we jump into like today's topic, which is going to be power of curiosity. Talk us through like when you became a doctor to transition into the work you're doing, right? Consumer psychology and like the helping your clients and big brands.
Yeah. Well, yeah, thank you. Yes, it's actually one of the first questions people ask me when they hear what I do in my background. They always ask me, "Well, how did you go from being a psychologist into, working in the business world?" Um, I have been fascinated by psychology since I was a kid. I was always interested in the mind and the brain and how people think. And so, it kind of flowed very naturally. I was intent on becoming a psychologist and a therapist. And after many, many years of school, as I was finishing up my doctorate, I had this sneaking suspicion that I didn't love being a therapist,
Mhm.
and you can imagine that that created a bit of a crisis for me
Right.
after all those years invested. But I was fortunate enough to have several mentors that were psychologists, but also did some business consulting, and so I started sort of tagging along with them a little bit. And about 30 years ago, I led my first focus group, and I just fell in love with that process. And what I realized was I love psychology. I'm fascinated by it endlessly.
Yeah.
Um, and but what I'm primarily interested in is not the pathology of psychology, but how people make decisions every day and all of the very intricate um, complexities that go into everyday decisions.
Yeah, it's very interesting, isn't it? Learning about something which is we don't look at that much compared to unless you are like a big brands. For an example, if it's a small business owners or medium business owners, like you don't look into like what is the consumer behavior or like how they're buying into my products or services. We just focus on like a day-to-day activities, like how I bring on new products in or how I'm going to sell it, but without understanding what they want and how I'm going to serve that, unless you go to work with the big brands like for an example Apple or like Microsoft, and
Mm.
they like understand the read the more data about the how people are buying when someone is advertising. For an example, you see ads on Facebook or YouTube or Google, like it's all about like understanding the psychology behind it, like what you interested in as a consumer and what kind of products I'm going to show in front of you, so you know like what kind of decision you're going to make. But when it comes down to small business owners, like if we don't dive into that, we're passionate about certain products and we believe like this product's going to solve some problem, but not understandingly like is it going to solve someone's problem or are they actually looking for that kind of
Mm.
solution in the first place? This is why like a majority of business goes out of business, start or fails, 90% of them, because they don't understand the consumer behavior, like what kind of things they want, rather than we just think like this is someone who wants, right?
Yeah, and I think that's very accurate. I would add though, and in my professional life, I have primarily worked with larger brands. They just have more resources to have someone
Yeah.
like me around. But I grew up in small business. My family still owns a furniture business that
Mm.
my parents started when I was 4 years old. So
Right.
I grew up in small business, and that's really where I began um, sort of developing my interest in customers and watching my parents and how they engage with their customers. And one of the things I think that is often overlooked for small business is what I like to call the small business advantage. And that is that for small businesses, the advantage they have is that the primary owners are typically engaged with their customers day in and day out. And so they kind of inherently start to develop an understanding, hopefully, of what their customers need, what they prefer, sort of their aspirations, when they take the time to
Hmm.
really think about that. And so for small businesses, I always encourage them, to kind of consider what they know about their customers. They don't necessarily need to go off and invest a lot of money in doing big studies and things like the big brands. They probably have more knowledge than they actually are aware of.
Yeah.
If they take the time to really sit down and think about what have been my experiences with my customers and what are my takeaways from those.
Yeah. And obviously, it's like a process, isn't it? Like it takes time to understand them kind of journey, right? Like as someone just can't just tell, like you need to have some kind of feedback from your customer and making the product better and like I get some feedback what they actually need. And this is like a right now I'm seeing a lot of businesses building a communities around their small businesses so they can get real feedback, doing some kind of workshop and that gives like a more advantage over like a, you just guessing like what people need rather than just asking them how can I serve you better and how can I give you certain things. And that comes in like the topic you have chosen for this show, right? Like a power of curiosity. So when you're
Absolutely.
curious about like a certain things, what can I do and how can I help, how can I serve, and then it opens up like a lot of doors, and the doors like you never thought of like this existed. Like you probably thought about certain kind of products or services you're going to sell and that's too complex, but actually people need something is more simpler, which is going to be less cost for you and less headache for you, and then you can turn it into something bigger, isn't it? So tell me about that. You said like it's some kind of accidental curiosity actually led into something bigger in your life, right?
Yeah. So yes, and there's a great introduction. Yes, curiosity really is one of the pillars of my career. It has been since the very beginning, and I really credit that conscious, insatiable curiosity for any success that I've had. Is really kind of tied back to that. Yes, when I was just starting grad school to become a therapist, and if anyone's ever seen me speak, you may have seen me tell the story before because it was um, so key to my point of view in psychology. Um, First day of graduate school, I'm there with my notebook and everything, and I'm very excited. And this professor walks in and sees this room of newbies, and we're all bright-eyed and ready to learn.
Yeah.
And he's kind of this older gentleman, a little bit grizzled, a little bit disheveled. And he walks in with his briefcase, sits his briefcase on the table, and he slams his fist on the table and he says, "You will never understand people, no matter how hard you try." And
Mm.
then he stopped talking. And I just remember like looking around the room with all of us, like, what is happening here? I mean, isn't that what we're paying for to understand people and get, really figure them out? And as he went on to say, and as over time, it really took me some time, years, in fact, to really get what he was speaking about. And what he really meant by this, and what I took from it, is that when you enter into the social sciences, and I very much consider um, sales and marketing to be in the realm of the social sciences,
Yeah.
when you step into that world and you commit yourself to the social sciences, you have committed yourself to a life of constant learning about uh, your patient, your customers, your consumers, whoever that may be. And it is a never ending cycle. No matter how much you learn, there is always more to learn. And the minute that you stop learning is when you become less effective. You gain biases and blind spots that create barriers for you. And so it is something that has fueled my curiosity for the last, well, 30 plus years. And has kept me learning and interested. And I can lose interest in something very quickly. I have been endlessly fascinated by the work that I do, the people I engage with, throughout my career.
Yeah. And obviously that opens up like a lot of doors, right? Like I was really curious, like the beginning of the career. Obviously, I'm not doing the business for 30 years like yourself, but I come like it's been like over 12 years now since I started the business. And my first business was like a restaurant we opened up with my brother. And then like this is not something I wanted to do like yourself, like the clinical psychology wasn't something for yourself. And then restaurant wasn't for me, but I run that 3.5 years. Then we decided to sell the business and just move on. And during that time, like I was curious to find out like what other things I can do, how I can serve people on an online world rather than just like a physical location and working them long hours. With the curiosity that opened up a lot of doors, a lot of them are closed. And a lot of experiences, did more than like 20 different kind of businesses in online space. Then after like a 1 year, like I found my thing. And last 11 years, like I'm in the same thing, doing the same kind of work. And that actually led to like with the curiosity, like at the beginning, the first 20 businesses, like it didn't work out like for me really greatly. And then I figured out like certain things like I didn't like or didn't enjoy. Then I had to shut it down and stop it completely. Certain things like it wasn't for me. The process, it wasn't for me. But to get to like a 21st, the business that right now I'm in, like you had to go through the series of process, a series of businesses and the failures and the learning, and all led to like curiosity, like going one thing and another, and just led to the next one. Same with like when I start with like a different kind of products or services, with the curiosity how things gonna be, like how people are gonna react to it. Right now, with the AI and automation is coming, curious like how I can I serve my customers better, how I can I automate a lot of things while we are doing manually, and how we can adapt with the new technology. I don't want to be left behind like after when everyone's doing the same thing, and I don't want it to be like left behind on the certain things. So with the like a curiosity mindset, like do you think it's a distraction as well? Sometimes like those people are like a because entrepreneurs like sometimes we take on too many projects, or we have a shiny object syndromes. Like we see like so many opportunities after getting get curious. Because when you open up, for me, when I open up my YouTube channel, I see like a lot of different new ideas how we can do, and sometimes the distraction as well. Like if we are too curious and learning too many things, and get overwhelmed as well. So do you think this is the case as well?
It can be. I certainly have, find myself every once in a while going down like a YouTube wormhole, and spending time on things that maybe I shouldn't be focused on in the moment. But I do think it does come with the need for um, discipline. But the thing that's really interesting for me is the when you I think we first have to define what curiosity is, just to so we have our terms really clear here. I think many people think curiosity is just about asking questions, and that is certainly a very important part of curiosity, but really curiosity is about the quality of your attention, and how you choose to engage with the world. If you open yourself up to the world around you, and engage deeply, that's really curiosity, being in the moment, having noticing things about the world around you and wanting to learn more. And I think that if you think about curiosity that way, it is the driving force behind scientific exploration, behind innovation, and certainly professional growth. And it really requires us to step outside of our comfort zone and be willing to ask, what more is there to learn? What else do I not know? And that requires some intellectual humility as well.
Yeah. So yeah, you just like need to have like a balances and like a knowing like when to stop and how much you need to put in and how you going to like explore the new ideas and just having a balance for like I said, like this is the rabbit hole I used to go in before. And last couple of years, I decided like I need to have some kind of boundaries, any kind of new ideas and everything. I'm gonna look into when it comes down to December, and then if something I need to change for the year, then I look into it and learn from it, and just give it like a next 12 months, the same plan without like it changing a much. And obviously, we're gonna see like evaluation is the products or services that work, or the project I'm working on, the strategies I'm working on, is it working or not working? Just change it here and there, not like a completely just make a change, the whole thing, the whole product line or service line, we're just eliminating for nothing. And that gives like a more focus for me and my team as well. And it just like a give you more a relaxation as well. Like you don't have to continuously learning and adapting like every single week, every single day, and it just like you don't see any kind of progress. So right now, like I obviously have worked with tons of businesses and the big brands. So what is the number one lesson like they gave you like when it comes down to being curious and learning about your customers and consumers, and how as a small business owners can implement on their businesses. Obviously they don't have the kind of resources, like they cannot hire like a let's say consultant for $20,000 for an example, or like a research team and development teams, things like that. But how they can do in a small level, obviously your family business is a small business as well, and you probably give someone guidance in that particular area. So those who's
Yeah,
listening today, how can you guide them?
absolutely. I think that, when you allow yourself to be curious, and again, thinking about curiosity as focusing your attention, being open to the world around you, being inquisitive, that can fuel, and that really is the fuel for customer insights. And you're not going to learn very much about things that you're not curious about. And so finding ways to be curious about your customers and realize that there's always more to learn. Everything's changing all the time. Your customers are going to be changing all the time. The world around them is changing all the time, which then influences their needs, their aspirations, which again will be changing. And because everything's changing all the time, there's always something to be curious about. There's always new information to be had.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a really fantastic professor of psychology at Harvard, and her name is Dr. Ellen Langer. She's one of my heroes,
Mhm.
um, and she's often known as the mother of mindfulness. And I don't know about you, but when I hear the word mindfulness, my mind goes to kind of a new agey kind of place.
Right.
That's not what she talks about at all. She defines mindfulness as simply noticing new things, being present in the moment and noticing new things about even the most familiar things that you're doing. And to her, that is mindfulness. And that is also aligns very nicely with curiosity. And what she's found is that simply asking yourself, what if I'm wrong about this? What if I'm wrong about my customer? That reduces cognitive biases by like 23%.
Mhm.
Um, she's found that it increases our ability to engage with others effectively because if you're curious about someone, it shows in your interaction with them. And if someone feels like if you're talking to someone and it feels like they're interested in you,
Yeah.
it kind of builds from there. That feels good. I want to engage with this person more. They learn more about you, you learn more about them, and it enhances that relationship. The same is true for customers. When you show curiosity to your customers, that will be appreciated because they will feel like you care about what they need, what they aspire to, those types of things, and that enhances your engagement with them. And I think the foundation of any brand um, out there is trust from the customer. If customers trust your brand, they feel good about your brand, then they will be more willing to engage with you. They're more willing to purchase from you. They're more willing to take um, advice from you as well. And
Mm.
so that is a really key aspect to developing those relationships that will help build your business. And there's many ways that you can go about um, building your own sense of curiosity. Um, some people are naturally born more curious than others, but research has consistently shown that, we can all uh, make a practice of being curious and increase our ability to be curious with others.
Yeah, that's great. So obviously the curiosity is the process, and we have to understand the way like our consumer is behaving and working towards that. So there is like a lot of things we can be done, right? Like is there like a, do you have any structure or like a formula you use when you're working with the big brands, but on a smaller level if someone wants to use that?
Yeah. I lead workshops on curiosity all the time with my customers, my clients.
Mm.
Um, And what I do, I try to equip them with powerful questions or challenges that can help them develop their curiosity. And the first is to become curious about something familiar. And so maybe it's something, a habit you have or something you do every day. It could be, having your coffee in the morning or brushing your teeth or something like that. And just we normally do that on autopilot and we're not really in the moment thinking about it. And so by allowing yourself to take a step back and be present and think about all of the things that are going on. Let's say you're brushing your teeth. Notice, how do you typically do it? How are you holding the brush? How do you put the toothpaste on? What does it taste like? And noticing the sensations around you as you do it, just becoming more curious about even the most familiar things. And that is a practice that can help you start to develop that sense of wonder, that sense of curiosity, of mindfulness in the moment. Um, I think, just even starting from a sense of there's always something to learn. And I'm in a,
Yeah.
in a place of always having something to learn. I don't know if you're familiar with Bill Nye, the science guy, but he has a great quote that he says, everybody you meet knows something you don't.
Mm.
And, I really love that kind of mindset of what is there for me to learn from the people around me. Even
Yeah.
the people, even people that have been in your life forever, their lives are evolving and changing and growing. They're going to have something for you to learn as well. And so I think, starting there, trying to find novelty in the familiar, embracing lifelong learning. Um, I think also being able to explore diverse perspectives. So even, being able to be curious about someone else's perspective, even if you don't share that perspective, just trying to understand it. That's a lot of the work I do. I do a lot of consumer research, qualitative research in particular.
Yeah.
And I am always fascinated by the people I get to meet and what their lived experience is. And it just really comes from putting yourself in that curious mindset. Now, these may be people you walk by every day and you don't think twice about it. But if you take a moment and, it's a situation where in consumer research, you're actively speaking with them, but just asking them, about their lives. You'd be amazed at how much people um, are willing to share when they simply feel acknowledged and appreciated. And I think that's part of it as well. Making sure your customers feel acknowledged and appreciated. And that can be as simple as asking them, as you said earlier, what do you need from me? How can I improve for you? What else can I do to help you? Those kinds of questions really feel good to people because it tells your customers that you're interested in them and you're trying to help.
Yeah. So, Dr. Chris, we are nearly coming to the end of this podcast. So, before we wrap up here, if anyone wants to learn more about yourself or your business, where is the best place to find you today?
Best place to find me is at my website. It's thebuycologist.com and it's BUYCOLOGIST. You can learn all about me. You can learn about the workshops, speaking engagements, consulting that I offer. And I just started a newsletter as well, which comes out once a month and does a deep dive into a certain aspect of consumer psychology. So you can sign up for that as well.
All right, that's great. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you coming to the show and sharing your valuable journey and the insights with our listeners today. I appreciate everything and good luck to you. And thank you for coming again.
It has been my pleasure, Neil. Thank you.
You're very welcome. So that's a wrap, guys. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast episode with Dr. Chris Gray. I hope you enjoyed our conversation. So if anyone wants to learn more about him, they can visit his website and also social media platform. I'm gonna add all the links on the description for you to find him easily. So until then, I'll talk to you in the next episode. So take care, everyone.